thank you so much for being here with us today. I'm Megan Kelly, and I am honored to have you. And we begin today on a serious note. The news about Bill O'Reilly and Fox News. Have you seen it? It is shocking, and it's upsetting to many of us. I spent this weekend on the phone nonstop talking to many women at Fox News and otherwise who are deeply disturbed over the latest New York Times report. On Saturday, the Times revealed yet another settlement paid to dispose of a sexual harassment case against O'Reilly. Not a huge shock there. We already knew of 5, thanks to a Times report in April. But this latest one was for $32 million. Reportedly paid directly by O'Reilly to Fox News legal analyst Lise Wheel, right before Fox News renewed his contract. $32 million. That is not a nuisance value settlement. That is a jaw-dropping figure. O.J. Simpson was ordered to pay the Goldman and Brown families $33.5 million for the murders of Ron and Nicole. What on earth would justify that amount? What awfulness went on? Wheel reportedly alleging that she was subjected to non-consensual sex by O'Reilly, which he denies. Watch.
Hi, I'm Bill O'Reilly reporting.
It is one of the biggest sexual harassment settlements ever reported. The New York Times reports Bill O'Reilly himself paid legal analyst Lise Wheel $32 million after she alleged sexual harassment by the former Fox News anchor. According to the Times, in January of this year, Wheel claimed O'Reilly repeatedly harassed her, sent her pornographic material, and was engaged in a non-consensual sexual relationship with her. Fox's parent company, 21st Century Fox, told NBC News it was aware of the confidential settlement, but not its terms. In February, 1 month after the settlement, Fox extended O'Reilly's contract, his annual salary to be $25 million a year, to serve as the flagship anchor on the news channel. O'Reilly's spokesman calls the New York Times out of context, false, defamatory, and obviously designed to embarrass Bill O'Reilly.
First time we're hearing from you.
Last month, O'Reilly spoke to Today's Matt Lauer, saying his firing was for business reasons and denied any allegations of sexual misconduct.
You were accused of sexual harassment. You said at the time you did absolutely nothing wrong.
Correct.
Do you stand by that?
I do.
The New York Times reports Bill O'Reilly has now paid out $42 million to 6 women to settle sexual harassment claims. O'Reilly has said the claims had no merit, and I have to put to rest any controversies to spare my children. NBC News has not verified the Times reporting and cannot say for sure how many women have made claims or gotten settlements, because sexual harassment settlements often end with a non-disclosure agreement requiring the accuser to never speak about the incident. Former Fox News political analyst Kirsten Powers never filed a claim against O'Reilly and has opened up about what happened when she went to Fox News chairman Roger Ailes, saying O'Reilly had been condescending to her. This is how she described that encounter to CNN's Anderson Cooper.
I was told the same exact thing. There's nothing we can do. It's Bill. He's a jerk. Nobody likes him. And then Roger said, Bill, he likes to put up dirty pictures and ask pretty girls to talk about them. Oh, and then he said, what am I going to do? I don't like him, but he makes so much money, there's nothing I can do. That was the
Wait a
culture.
minute, who was it who said that?
Roger Ailes.
Roger Ailes was forced out of Fox in July of 2016 after another scandal at the network. Allegations that Ailes was also sexually harassing employees. Allegations Ailes denied until his death in May of this year.
No spin zone. The factor begins.
In April, the tide turned on O'Reilly. As reports of harassment grew, advertisers began pulling their ads. Boycotts of the network began. The New York Times reports federal investigators were going to ask for all of the documents regarding Lise Wheel's claims of harassment. On April 19th, Fox told O'Reilly he was out. He left the network with a reported $25 million payout.
In response to the New York Times, 21st Century Fox says that it has taken concerted action to transform Fox News, including hiring new leadership. O'Reilly calls the Times reports a malicious smear, claiming that no woman in 20 years ever complained to Human Resources or legal about him. Maybe that is true. Fox News was not exactly a friendly environment for harassment victims who wanted to report, in my experience. However, O'Reilly's suggestion that no one ever complained about his behavior is false. I know because I complained. It was November of 2016, the day my memoir was released. In it, I included a chapter on Ailes and the sexual harassment scandal at Fox News, something the Murdochs knew I was doing and, to their credit, approved. O'Reilly happened to be on CBS News that morning. They asked him about my book and about Ailes, who by this time had been forced out in disgrace. O'Reilly's response?
I'm not
Yes.
that interested in this.
No?
No, I mean, it's
Sexual
over for-
harassment? You're not interested in sexual harassment?
I'm not interested in basically litigating something that is finished that makes my network look bad, okay? I'm not interested in making my network look bad at all. That doesn't interest me one bit.
I did something that day I've never done before. I wrote an email to the co-presidents of Fox News, Bill Shine and Jack Abernathy. An email I have never made public, but am sharing now because I think it speaks volumes about powerful men and the roadblocks one can face in taking them on. I wrote in part, perhaps he didn't realize the kind of message his criticism sends to young women across this country about how men continue to view the issue of speaking out about sexual harassment. Perhaps he didn't realize that his exact attitude of shaming women into shutting the hell up about harassment on grounds that it will disgrace the company is in part how Fox News got into the decade-long Ailes mess to begin with. Perhaps it's his own history of harassment of women, which has, as you both know, resulted in payouts to more than one woman, including recently, that blinded him to the folly of saying anything other than, "I am just so sorry for the women of this company," who never should have had to go through that. Bill Shine called me in response to my email, promising to deal with O'Reilly. By 8 p.m. that night, O'Reilly had apparently been dealt with. And by that I mean he was permitted, with management's advance notice and blessing, to go on the air and attack the company's harassment victims yet again.
If somebody is paying you a wage, you owe that person or company allegiance. If you don't like what's happening in the workplace, go to human resources or leave. I've done that. And then take the action you need to take afterward if you feel aggrieved. There are labor laws in this country. But don't run down the concern that supports you by trying to undermine it.
This is not unique to Fox News. Women everywhere are used to being dismissed, ignored, or attacked when raising complaints about men in authority positions. They stay silent so often out of fear. Fear of ending their careers, fear of lawyers, yes, and often fear of public shaming, including through the media. At Fox News, the media relations chief, Irina Briganti, is known for her vindictiveness. To this day, she pushes negative articles on certain Ailes accusers, like the one you are looking at right now. It gives me no pleasure to report such news about my former employer, which has absolutely made some reforms since all of this went down. But this must stop. The abuse of women, the shaming of them, the threatening, the retaliation, the silencing of them after the fact, it has to stop. Up next, Juliet Huddy, who was on air at Fox News for 20 years, speaking out for the first time since she accused Bill O'Reilly of sexually harassing her. Welcome back. Well, two people at the heart of the sexual harassment embroiled in the sexual harassment scandals at Fox News are Doug Wigdor. He's an attorney handling 22 claims against Fox News, and Juliet Huddy, who's a former Fox News anchor who accused Bill O'Reilly of misconduct. Thank you both so much for being here. Juliet, good to see you.
Good to see you. I'm trying to keep it together. I can't believe I'm getting so emotional.
I know. We
That
worked
was
together.
amazing, by the way.
Thank you. We worked together for years, as did Bill and I, as did you and Bill, and it's hard talking about this.
You say, I can tell that you're affected by it.
Right?
I mean, it's women who have to deal with this type of stuff. It's everything you said is so true. The fear of lawyers, no offense, going up against corporate attorneys, people who are trained at Harvard and educated at Yale and Oxford, and you know that you're just this one person that's about to go up against literally a machine, and it is daunting and it's frightening, and it holds you back from taking action sometimes.
Mm-hmm. It's not just, I talked specifically about the media relations chief at Fox News, with whom I got along for years until I didn't back Ailes, and then things changed, and women everywhere understand that they can be shamed. They can not only be sued, they can be shamed in ways that have fingerprints on it and that do not have fingerprints on it, Doug.
Yeah, I mean, Irina Briganti, who you mentioned in your very powerful piece before we came on, has been doing this for years, and she's still there. That's part of their playbook. They have a big playbook, but that is definitely a central part of it. I mean, she has outed actual victims who, like Scotty Hughes, who accused Charles Payne of rape and who's now on the air, Charles Payne. She outed her to a tabloid. But really, when you look at the story, and it was an excellent piece of journalism by Emily Steele and Mike Schmidt at the New York Times, but when you look at that piece, the hubris that Fox showed by knowing all of the sexual harassment victims and what was going on, to not only renew Bill O'Reilly's contract, but they gave him a pay raise to boot. It is just incredible. And there were
They claim, the Fox News claims, that it knew he had settled with Lease, but it didn't know the terms.
Well, if you in the Times article, they say they had a copy of the term sheet, which for lawyers speak is sort of the essential terms of the agreement, but without the dollar value. There's a lot we still need to know. What did the executives, what did the Murdochs know, and when did they know it? And what efforts have they taken to actually deprive shareholders, the public, and the government, the U.S. Attorney's Office? Because one of the things that we saw in that in the affidavit, for instance, or in the term sheet, was that evidence was destroyed as part of this agreement.
In other words, let's settle the claim and you get rid of all the emails and the text messages that we ever exchanged with one another.
Exactly, and so it makes it easy. Bill O'Reilly can come on Matt Lauer's show and say, my 42 years, it's been great, and nobody's ever accused me of any wrongdoing. Well, if you're paying off victims, you're holding money over their head for years, stringing it out over years, bind them to confidentiality, and then the evidence is destroyed. That is a serious
But even,
problem.
I mean, the truth is that ignores, the whole argument ignores the realities of what life was like at Fox News when it came to the Human Resources Department and the general counsel who's now gone. That was not a viable option in the eyes of most of the women there. It was controlled by Ailes.
A lot of people feel that human resource. I mean, I bet if I take a poll of the audience, when you think of Human Resources Department, many of us think of them as sort of protecting the bosses, not protecting the employees, which is what they're supposed to be there for. So that's an intimidating factor, and it's also a reason that maybe women don't go to the Human Resources Department because they don't think they're going to be backed up. They feel like when they walk out of the department, they're going to have a bullseye on them, and they're going to be labeled troublemaker.
Like that maybe somebody else will fire at. And maybe it's not HR, maybe it's the press, maybe it's somebody who deals with there's all sorts of ways that they can retaliate without you being able to prove it.
And again, companies, corporations are machines. They have, again, lawyers, they have the human resources departments, everybody working for them. And so when they have an employee go rogue, you know that you're probably going to be facing, I'm not speaking specifically about myself, but you know that you're going to be facing a machine, a behemoth coming after you, and probably not too concerned about your reputation or your future.
And that retaliation is part of the playbook. When people complained at Fox News, they were retaliated. We represent Lydia Uchik, who's a local Fox 5 News reporter. She complained, she stood up, she said that she was discriminated against because she disclosed her pregnancy. To this day, she still works there, but they're retaliating against her. We represent Jessica Gallagher, who's a radio correspondent. The day after she complained, she was fired.
But I want to just make clear, I practiced law for 10 years too. These are allegations. They're yet unproven. Fox News hasn't had its day in court, and it gets to have that. And even invalid claims can be settled, just to get rid of them, so people don't have to deal with the nonsense of litigation. One of the reasons the lease wheel settlement has made such headlines is because $32 million is not nuisance value. That's a huge number, and when a lot of lawyers question whether it is reasonable for the company to be saying it didn't know that O'Reilly would have paid $32 million. Yeah. And the next question is, if they didn't know, why didn't they know? Well, why didn't they find out before re-signing him? But hold on, I'm going to leave it on that because we have more with Juliet after the break. I really want to ask you about the non-disclosure agreement and whether you regret signing that, because there's only so much she can say as a result of striking that deal. We're going to pick it up there right after the break. We're back now with former Fox News anchor Juliet Huddy and her attorney Douglas Wigdor. Last year, Juliet settled a lawsuit alleging sexual harassment by then Fox News host Bill O'Reilly. So I know that you signed a non-disclosure agreement in connection with the settlement.
And as a lawyer, you know I can't talk about anything.
You can't. Do you regret signing that? Let me ask you that.
Just talk more about just women
I'll
signing
broaden it out.
non-disclosure
I think, like I said, I think many women go into the settlement agreement because they just don't want to face what potentially could be coming at them. Again, you're dealing with a corporation filled with people who are going to do everything they possibly can to make sure that they win, and you don't. And if you're just a woman who made $100,000 a year and you got bills to pay and you've got other things going on, and you have to worry about facing bad press and all that. It's just you got to think about your future. And some people just want to make it go away and just move on with their lives.
Are you scared today?
I'm terrified. I'm actually terrified, and I don't know why I'm about to cry, but it's difficult. It's difficult. I think people have regrets. I think people have regrets when they sign non-disclosure agreements. I would imagine that they do. I think it's something that you grapple with when you're going through it, and then you think it's the best move to make, but it's not necessarily the best move.
Because you feel very alone, and like you are the only one, and you don't know that you're part of this underground
part of a group.
Sorority.
Right. I think if settlement agreements didn't happen, if there weren't non-disclosures, more women would feel like, okay, I could potentially fight this if they know that there are other women who have gone through the same thing. But, typically you don't know that there are other women.
The lease wheel settlement, according to the Times, it's going to be paid out, the $32 million over 4 years.
Yeah.
There's a reason they usually do it that way.
Yeah, and that's designed to chill her from speaking out. If you dangle the money over 4 years, then they have an incentive to go after her if she violates the confidentiality agreement. But just picking up on what Juliet said, there are a lot of women who are silent sufferers, people who have not come forward for fear of the Fox and other companies' playbook, which is to attack.
Well, we saw that. It's not just Fox. Look at Harvey Weinstein.
That's right, to attack legitimate victims of harassment, sexual assault, rape, and the like. And this $32 million settlement, Fox was the recipient of a release in that settlement. They got something in return for it. And their head lawyer, Gerson Zweifach, who's the head lawyer at 21st Century Fox in the Times piece, is talking about how they can hide that fact from the federal government. And it just shows you the knowledge about what they had, what they were trying to deceive the public, shareholders, viewers, and everyone else from doing.
We haven't heard directly from Gerson on that, but we did get a statement from 21st Century Fox, which owns Fox News Channel. They say this: 21st Century Fox has taken concerted action to transform Fox News, including installing new leaders, overhauling management and on-air talent, expanding training, and increasing the channels through which employees can report harassment or discrimination. These changes come from the top, with Lachlan and James Murdoch personally leading the effort to promote civility and respect on the job, while maintaining the company's long-held commitment to a diverse, inclusive, and creative workplace.
I just need to respond to that, if I could, because it's preposterous. It really is. They pay Bill O'Reilly, they give him a raise after everything we've talked about. They pay him $20 million when he leaves. They pay Roger Ailes $40 million when he leaves.
That is done all the time to get rid of a problematic executive, though, all the time.
Well, not when they're accused of all sorts of sexual harassment.
Yes, even then.
And then they have the audacity to continue to fight 22 legitimate claims of discrimination.
Well, they don't think they're
and
legitimate,
harassment.
Doug. I mean, you can get into the specifics about the litigation, but people fight litigation, and there's a real belief among many, including our current president, that if you settle one claim, you're going to be the recipient of many, many, many other claims.
They might, but they've already called it abhorrent behavior. So, you take a look at our race discrimination case. 12 people of color who were just grotesquely discriminated against based on their color. Fox News puts out a statement that the behavior was abhorrent. They've admitted to it already.
Didn't they fire the woman? They fired the woman who was at that.
After we had to file a lawsuit.
Guilty of that. I mean, the thing is, Fox, they're not wrong that they've made changes. They have made changes. Bill Shine, who I mentioned in that email, is no longer there. Abernathy is still running the company. O'Reilly's gone. Diane Brandy, the general counsel, is gone. Irina Briganti's still there. But they have made changes. The question is, I mean, the reason that the lease wheel settlement was so shocking is because it was made after Ailes was gone and while they were trying to improve the culture and when they knew he had settled 5 other cases.
Yeah, but it starts at the top. Megan. It starts with the Murdochs, who are still there and running the company. And if you look at their board and you look at the number of women on that board, I think it's just a couple. There are not many people of color. There's not many people who have experience in diversity, experience in making sure that the Human Resources Department and the Legal Department make sure that when people complain about discrimination in the workplace, that they're not further victimized and retaliated, that they actually can stand up.
I feel like, okay, yes, human resources, absolutely, and Fox News has a new person in there overseeing that kind of thing who supposedly doesn't answer to management. But it's even knowing, even when I had been there, because I complained against Ailes, I wouldn't have gone to that person. I would have been terrified. I would have been worried that it would have gotten back. I mean, we have to find a better way as a society. We need men in powerful positions to stand up for us when we do complain and take us seriously, right? And we need to find the underground army at our respective places, because I think if the Weinstein accusers had known how many other women there were, if we had known how many other women had been suffering at Fox News, these things would have ended much sooner. I'll give you the last
word. And women think that their careers are going to be torpedoed, and they could be potentially torpedoed if you have the right machine behind you coming from the company's point of view.
Do you have another job?
No. On that happy note.
Tomorrow is another day.
Yes, it is.
It's great to see you.
Great seeing you.
Brave of you to be here.
Thanks.
Doug, thanks to you,
Megan.
too.
Appreciate it.
Thank you guys all, too, as well. We'll be right back.